Hello, everyone, and welcome to Exoconscious Humans YouTube. We have another exciting episode today featuring Dr. Karin McLeod, and we want to urge you to join us in the Exoconscious Humans community. You can subscribe to our channel. You can also join us through our exoconscioushumans.com website and learn more about our very unique exoconscious coaching that is done on a group level. We meet weekly in small groups of contactees, and we move through a coaching protocol where we dig into sharing what exactly happened to us. And during those discussions, it's very interesting. Sometimes people will say, "Oh, I don't have anything to contribute today because I really never had any contact when I was a child." And then as the coaching progresses, there's all these lights go on and people are saying, "Oh, I remember something now. I'm ready to share." So we share our contact and before birth, during childhood, adulthood. We go into how to learn to discern and discriminate, which is becoming increasingly important, not only because of different forces that are within the world, different ideas and intentions of maybe other forces that we don't have we're not in alignment with, but we also learn, most importantly, how to discern ourselves and what our self-knowledge is and how we can move through this life living by our own unique truth. And Dr. Karin McLeod is with us to discuss her truth that she has uncovered and I think been strengthened through the Exoconscious Coaching Group, because what happens is people in the coaching group become friends and they share intimate things even outside of the coaching group. So you just have a band of like-minded hearts who gather together and want to support each other. So Karin has a PhD in Health and Human Services, specializes in counseling. She's CEO and founder of Begin It Now Coaching, which I'm sure she's going to tell us about. She's also a member of our Institute for Exoconsciousness, and she focuses on coaching and counseling to raise the level of consciousness of our species, our human species, through a variety of modalities and researched evidence-based models. The thing I like most about Karin's work, and she's also on LinkedIn under Dr. Karin McLeod, KarinMcleod. I just love this statement, Karin, where you blend consciousness science and the material and metaphysical together so beautifully. Her current mission is to be part of the future research, development, and application of consciousness-based studies in the areas of neuroscience, cognitive approaches, metaphysical, psychological, physiological, theological, as well as a multidisciplinary approach to consciousness and the evolution of humanity. That's a big order. I know Karin personally. She can fulfill the order. So thanks for being with us, and thanks for bringing all of your expertise to exoconsciousness. It's just been a delight. And Karin and I also have a history together, which I'm sure she'll tell you about. It's very interesting how these things happen. So welcome, Karin. Tell us a little bit first about this mission, because it's so comprehensive. It's brilliant.
Hi, Rebecca, friend. It's been quite a journey for me. I'm kind of the preschooler, I say, of our group, because a lot of this is fairly new for me in the past few years. Although, as I have come to find out, it's not so new. That, in reading your books and studying your books and talking to other people, had so many things come from my childhood and different things that happened to me that I never really knew what they were. I couldn't make sense of them. And until you have some experiences to help you connect the dots, you don't even know what dots to look for. So my journey has been greatly helped with our group. You and I go back now about 15 years, maybe, that we worked in an unrelated capacity. And I find the synchronizations that have happened as a result of that to be really amazing, and has been part of my journey to help people also connect their experiences and manifest them into their reality and their mission and whatever they want to do with their life. That if they start looking back, they can see both good and bad, negative and positive, how they probably made that happen in a lot of ways. Certainly, I'm not talking about true victim experiences as it relates to abuse or other such experiences, but a lot of times our reality is manifested by lots of different people we come in contact with, and it's up to us to decide how we want to connect that. So my experience goes back really just a few years as how this got started for me. I know it was during COVID. I had an experience in 2020. It was July, and I was out on my deck, and it was in the mountains of northern Arizona. And I had two other people with me, and just saw the hugest orange glowing sphere at treetop level. It was quite startling. And I was like so shocked to be looking at this that I didn't know what to say. And one of the people went inside, and the other person kept saying, "What is that? What is that? Is that a UFO? What is that?" And I just kept staring at it and thought, wow, that is just so amazing. And I looked down and wanted to get my phone, of course, and looked up, and it just went away. It was just out. It didn't take off. It just blinked out, and it was huge, like basketball sized, with your arm out. So it was a very large, undeniable experience. But during that time, we went inside and we didn't really even talk about it, which now that I've done so much research, I guess is kind of a common thing, but it's so bizarre that we have experiences like that and then we just don't talk about it or address it. It's very strange to me, but I did it too. So now I know what happens. But consequently, after that, of course, my mind just exploded. I didn't even know what happened. I considered myself a very sane person, a professional. I knew lots about human behavior and neuropsychology, and I could not understand what was going on. I was frantically writing down lots of information about quantum physics and string theory and entanglement theory and quantum mechanics. And I am not a science person. I like nature and, life science, biology, but that I could not understand my obsession with this information. And it was a little alarming to me, and I hadn't connected it to a sighting. I just didn't understand what was happening. I wasn't a lifetime experiencer that I knew of. Then a few months later, I decided, well, I wonder if it has anything to do with that sighting. So, you start putting feelers out and you start researching, going on, I have started ordering books. And I just remember Ray Hernandez talking about his experience and just obsessing over reading and researching. You just go down the rabbit hole. There's no other way to try to get enough information to help yourself get some perspective on this reality existential crisis that is happening. And like I said, I wasn't a person necessarily like you with a lifetime of experience where I had worked up to, oh, I know what this is. It was just a mass explosion in my brain. And it was a little alarming at first. And then I happened to be listening to a podcast, the UFO Chronicles, while I was on my morning hike, because I thought, well, there's other people that have seen stuff and maybe they've had weird thoughts too. And you just try to put it together. And here, my very first person that I ever heard, and I hadn't even come back to found you yet again, but the very first person was Kevin Briggs. And he's on the UFO podcast. And it's not even the first episode. I picked a random episode, which now I know wasn't random. And I'm out walking and he's talking about the exact same downloaded information that I had received, almost verbatim. And I was stopped. I'm out walking. I don't have anything to write on. I'm trying to type into my phone, my notes section. Like, how can this be that this guy is saying what came into my head? Like, oh, what is happening? And I didn't know him yet, but I thought, well, there's something to whatever's happening here. So then I decided I was going to start researching this book, which is no small thing. Okay. I found Edgar Mitchell and consequently found you again and read this 600-page book. And it's all about his foundation and pre-study. And I was quite enlightened. And I found your section in there. I said, there's only one Rebecca Hardcastle Wright. I know it's her. Your picture wasn't in there, but I knew it was you. Looked you up and reached out to you. And you helped me connect a lot of this with the group. In the meantime, I had an additional experience to confirm to me that I wasn't going crazy like we often think. I always have had an interest in the paranormal phenomena. In fact, I wanted to be a parapsychologist, and my very conservative, medical educated father was like, "Are you out of your mind? You what? What kind of living is that going to be? And what are you going to do with that?" And really discouraged it in his analytical, conservative Christian mind that was just outrageous. And as loving and nurturing as he is, he just was like, that's just, you got to find another field to study. But that is my first love. As I think back, I've always had that very high passion and interest in psi phenomenon and parapsychology. So I chose a more respected version of it. But when I retired, I'm right back in it. And as soon as I started having more experiences like I had as a child, which I had not related to so many things. But I had another experience in March of 2021, which was what I called my confirmation experience. I was sitting on the edge of my bed after having got up in the middle of the night, sat down, so I knew I was awake, and I was just about to get back in, and a light being appeared to me. And I don't know how else to explain it. At first, I thought it was angelic, as many people do. But she was a young girl. She had long, light brown hair and very large green eyes that went kind of wrap around, not Oriental type looking, but just large, very green eyes. And I just was, again, so shocked. You kind of like touch your eyes or think, am I awake? Pinch whatever you have to do to see if you're awake. But she just looked at me, and it was an overwhelming feeling of love. And I thought, maybe this is an ancestor, or you go to what your mind knows. Is this a ghost, an angel? I just had no idea. And she said in my mind, not out loud, your firstborn has conceived her firstborn. Now, my daughter was in Italy. Her husband is in the military, and she was not planning to have any kids yet till she got back over here. So that was like, what? It was just kind of like you go back to sleep and just think, that was the weirdest thing. Is that a dream? Is that real? And I kind of put it out of my mind, but I did have the presence of mind at first to put it into my phone with a timestamp. Because I thought for posterity someday, my journal, or I saw an angel or something happened to me. Well, little did I know then that I was going to get a call in 6 weeks and have my daughter say I'm pregnant. And that once she got the ultrasound, she could trace it back to that night. So when that happened, I knew that, okay, that was a real confirmation of a future event that I, in my analytical mind, really needed to know that something is happening to me and probably has been for a while, and it's real. Because I could go down the laundry list of why it's not, because that's kind of what we're conditioned, programmed to do. So I just couldn't deny it anymore. So after that, I think actually in the timeline of things, I reached out to you maybe after that, because then I joined the group. So have had experiences like that, more downloaded information of what I'm supposed to be doing at this stage with all of this information. And part of that was to start my consciousness-based coaching business, which I do, and it's all virtual, and I have clients around the country and one out of the country. And I've just slowly been able to build my own research and education and consciousness-based studies to formulate a plan for what I need to do. That I don't know if I agreed. I must have agreed, because I strongly believe in free will. And I know that's one of the universal laws. I believe that very strongly. There was a point where I must have wanted this information and needed my either future self or a messenger to let me know that this is the time. And since then, there's just been all sorts of confirming information and experiences through our group. Kevin and I, of course, I got to know him. He came to the group. We didn't know each other, but we got brought together by you. And I was saying, "What's your name? And did you write a book called blah, da da da?" And he said, "Yeah, that's me." I said, "We have the same information." So he and I started comparing notes, and he still gets information on my behalf. He often will send me something and I'll say, "Oh, I was just going to look that up." He said, "Yeah, I've been instructed to tell you this." So I'm not great at a lot of the gifts that I've been given yet, but I'm learning. And a lot of it, one of the other things that was downloaded that I share with Kevin was information about DNA activation. I had no study or background in DNA. I had no idea that I was going to be writing down how it's frequency based, sound based, that it's activated. It has, properties that are, latent and will be activated in certain ways with light and frequency, and that it is a frequency. And all I know is I'm writing it all down, and then Kevin's telling me the same thing. And so lots of these things will happen to give me confirmation. But at the same time, I almost knew. I'm glad I got confirmation, because like I said, my analytical mind needs that sometimes. But that's kind of what's happened up to this point. And let's see, one of the other things you asked me about on my mission of what I'm doing is I also have received a lot of information about healing modalities that involve sound and frequency and light. And I had no experience with that either. So a lot of research and information gathering about those modalities. And that's something I'm working to integrate into what I do with people. So a couple things did come up that I was kind of unaware of, but I'd always wondered what happened. And I have shared this in the group, and I'll share it here. But I do have 2 episodes of missing time that I never could figure out what happened. I know that's like a very common theme. And the closest thing I can relate it to is when you wake up from anesthesia, you have a very clear message of them saying to you, "Okay, count backwards, or 10 to 1. And you remember everything right before that. And the people, the doctor, everything you're doing is detailed. And then there's just this blank. And then you are somewhere else, or you wake up and all the details there again. But when you have general anesthesia or propofol or whatever, you literally have a blank. You're not dreaming, you're not hearing noises. It's just a blank. And I never could understand that. And I thought, well, there's two instances that have always really bothered me. The first time was in 1971. I would have been 5 years old. And I was in the mountains of northern Arizona, Apache Sitgreaves National Forest, Travis Walton area. It was actually a couple of years before that happened to him, but I was with my older brother and sister, and we're out exploring in a meadow. And I had my dog with me that never left me, and I was 5. And the next memory, what I remember is that I'm sitting on a stump and nobody's there, not my dog, not my brother or sister. And then there's a blank, and then it's dark, and I'm on the other side of the meadow, and I'm hearing my dad whistle, because he would whistle for our dog or to get our attention. And it was a little far away, but I could hear him, and I started walking toward him, and he's saying, "Where have you been? We've been worried sick, right?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I got lost, I think." But just a blank. And no, I wasn't chasing squirrels. There's just nothing for 2 hours. And I'm on the other side and it's almost dark. And he said, "Where's Missy? Where's the dog?" I said, "I don't know." I said, I don't know where, I don't know. And so, I'm kind of getting upset, like he's upset, right? But I wasn't upset when I first realized where I was. That was the weird thing. I would have thought I would have been hysterical or something. So all these inappropriate things that you would think you'd be crying, screaming, help, whatever. But no, none of that. The next thing that happened was a ranger came and warned us that there's a flash flood coming and we got to get out of there. And if anyone's familiar with that area, that has happened. And in that year, there was a big flash flood and people died. And we got in our car, and the dog is still not back. I'm upset. So nobody's talking about being lost anymore because now there's a flash flood coming. Well, he's whistling and I see a little white dot on the road, and it's our dog. And here she comes now. Our dog never would have left me. And she never would run away. You could leave the gate open. So where was she and what scared her away? So as I grew up, I thought that was just the weirdest thing. No explanation, yeah, you got lost. I know there's a million people with these kind of stories, but these are the things that stay with you. And 10 years later, which I also know is very common to have another experience after, you're a little bit older. I was on a trip with a good friend. I was 15. We went with a student group to Mazatlan. And we're having a great time body surfing. We're just having a heyday, parasailing. And my friend and I decide we're going to go get some lunch. It's daytime at Senior Frogs. I can remember it very well. And there's lots of people there. And there's a little fence around the area where you can eat your lunch. And we sat kind of by the edge and we're talking. And the next memory I have, again, like this anesthesia moment where a white van pulls up, men get out of the van, pick my friend and I up and throw us in the back of the van. No windows. It's like at the time, like a cliche, you're going to get picked up for sex trafficking or whatever, which happens. And we're thrown in this van and it takes off. And I absolutely have no memory after that. So there's a blank. And I do not feel like I was assaulted. I don't feel like anything happened to me. I just have this blank. And 2 hours later, again, it's almost dark. We're on the other side of the town and we're at a farmer's market and it's almost dark. And my friend and I are, what are we doing over here? What just happened? And we're looking around for the green bus because that's for tourists, and the yellow bus is for locals. Well, there's nothing but yellow buses over here. And here we are, it's almost dark. We don't know where we are, but we're not upset. and we don't talk about it. And it was just the strangest thing. And I never could make sense of this. So we end up going home. We don't talk about it. Neither of us are hurt that we can tell. We just go on about our business. And it's just, I always thought that was the weirdest thing. What happened? And I tried to ask her. She's passed away since then. But we never talked about it until a few years ago, where I actually had things start happening. And I said, what do you think something happened to us? She said, I have no memory except the same as you. I have no idea. So I've never been regressed. I just have those two experiences to me of missing time that now that I've read so much about missing time and the research are very suspect. I had never connected it, but it's the only two events that happened in that manner. And just strange things like that, and other people confirming different things. Since then, Kevin has confirmed something else for me that I had no idea. I sent him a picture of me at that age, and he said, yep, that was you. And so things, you try to put it in a context of your perceived reality. And this group has helped me try to be grounded in this, because a lot of the people in our group are lifetime experiencers. And with everything that's happening now, I don't think it's a coincidence that I was given that information 3 years ago. And now look at what is happening. Part of my mission and goal is to help people as the things start to roll out that are like me and have had experiences and possibly had no experience. And they just want to know, what is this? What is this possible? Especially in light of our social situation, in light of their religious background, the culture of their family. There's so many things that could be like an existential crisis for people. And the information I've been given is to help that be an evolution, not a crisis. So that's a lot, but so that's what I got.
I have so many questions. But just relating the missing time events, have you had a desire to be regressed, or is regression not really necessary? Because we went through a time when it was a big deal. If something happened, boom, you got regressed. And I feel like we're in a different time right now.
I haven't really, a little curiosity, but I also have had so many experiences now and confirmations that I know what the missing time was, and that I don't need to know exactly the details of what happened. But now I feel like I have enough information to know that I was contacted somehow. I don't know exactly what happened, but one other thing, I have never had a fear or memories of the grays, so to speak. Some people do. I've always had more experiences with what I called light beings. I've had words like Elohim. I've had all sorts of interesting words that have been given to me, and that Kevin has helped me with too, in trying to understand what happened, or maybe who has been in touch with me. But I did have one experience after the light being experience in my bedroom, where I did wake up to something really frightening with gray figures, gray hands, specifically with the 4 digits. And it was very frightening to me. And I absolutely shouted out loud, no, no, no. And I was helped. And it's hard to say that when there were so many people who've had experiences and were not helped. And I don't know how I was helped, but I just know it didn't happen. I just know that something helped me or assisted me after my experience. And I'm not exactly sure how that worked, but I know that they weren't allowed to help, to take me or to influence me. So And there's so much to this that's so complicated and overlaid with experiences of people who, didn't give permission, or if they did, it certainly didn't sign up for a lot of the things that they went through. So it's such an overlaid and complicated subject, but I think we're learning more and more. And one of my biggest concerns right now, as I've shared, is with this controlled narrative rolling out and all the attention it's getting, that we need to be part of some other path for people so that it's not steeped in fear. Because we as our group don't experience fear. We co-create and we assist each other, and we're connected and message each other in ways as a group that only a group who has the intent focused and sources to help them could do. And I know we're not the only group doing that, but it's going to take that.
Can you go into detail a little bit about these scientific downloads that you get? Like, what's that feel like to you? What on a sensory level? And once you receive them, I know that you received a lot of scientific information that Kevin had also received, so you had validation for that, but you also just personally received it. So for people that have had downloads like you, what can you share about tools that you use to discern what was happening to you? How to maybe even move the downloads into some kind of a creative process and integrate it into maybe knowledge that you never had before?
A lot of what happens for me is when I wake up. And I think that that's probably a common theme for messaging, that's when our left brain kind of turns off and we're able to open up a venue for getting information. And sometimes I'll just wake up and I will start writing things down. It's not automated writing. I'm not channeling or anything like that. It's just I'm writing down the information that now is in my brain. And the discernment part is, it's not something I went to bed thinking about, or it's not an interest that I had previously had. So it's new information. Oftentimes it's in language I wouldn't use. That's the other discerning tool.
Could you give us an example of that? Because you have some good examples of that.
Because I need like really literal stuff sometimes. But I was one time after I'd received some information, I was putting together an email because I was very upset about something. And I thought, well, this is a better way to respond because this person can just think about it before they respond. I don't want to get in a conflict, a fight with them, but they need to know my feelings. I've got this whole thing to say. And I got finished and I put my hand on the mouse, and had my finger on it. And just a loud voice said, "Stay thy hand." And that's not language. First of all, I wouldn't use that language. And it was a male voice. It was a little jarring. I kind of took my hand off and it wasn't even "don't say that" or "oh, that's not nice" or "you might regret it." No, it was a very specific wording to me and told me and let me know whatever it was knew that my hand was about to send something, not speak it. So this I believe it came into my head. I didn't hear it with my ears, but I would never use that language. Why would I say that? I'm getting ready to send this. I feel very justified. And so sometimes it would be in words that I wouldn't pick for myself. Sometimes it would be about, oftentimes it would be something that is related to something else I was interested in, but it's much more scientific. It's much more technical in its language and application that I could ever know. And when sometimes I read over what I wrote down and I have to go research it because I never would have known what it was. So a lot of the discernment comes in being able to, for me, listen to the language being used, technical or whatever, something that I normally wouldn't use. And then it's like once I start researching it, I'm led to lots of other things. It's like I'm given just enough to get me going. And it's not something I would have pursued on my own.
You've also had situations, I think early on when this was all coming together. I remember in the coaching group, you would find objects that would give you validation.
Yeah,
I think that's really important to share those objects.
And it would almost always be jewelry. And it would go missing. And then it would show up in a very strange place it could never have gotten into. The blender. Yeah, I had a pendant and I went to pour my smoothie mix in there and I was like, what is in there? And dumped it out. And here was this pendant that had gone missing. And it was a purple amethyst heart. And, so it's like, I was like, what is this doing in here? But it had been missing, out of my jewelry case, locked. How did it get out? So after the experience with the light being also, several lights blew out in the house. I know I had some kind of electrical charge that is common, I think, with experiencers that I'd never experienced before, but I was experiencing. I've woken up to electronic tones in my left ear that another member of our group has confirmed and had the exact same thing happen to him. There's times my bed has been shaking, vibrating, and over the years, I've gone and looked under the bed. I've checked for the earthquake, see if there's earthquakes in our area. I know I'm awake because I'm looking under the bed, and just very strange things. And back then, the first few times you think, okay, is that demonic? Because what else am I going to think? I haven't had enough experience to relate it to like my own energy or an energy source or technology. And as I went through a lot of this stuff, I started to realize I think it was me vibrating. That I was told that my DNA has been activated and that I was vibrating. And it sounds so weird to say that out loud, but I've had other people tell me the same thing. So a lot of these experiences are just oddities that I try to write down to see if it's going to manifest later in a way that can help me connect it. I've heard electronic tones and an electronic voice say Peru. I don't have anything going on in Peru, but maybe I need to go there, and no context, just loud tone and Peru and a strange electronic female voice. So some of the things, it's like, I don't think we have the license on, ET portals where only we can communicate with them or our sources or contacts. Who knows what else comes through? That there's other dimensions, there's other things. And it's amazing that we're not the only ones talking about this now, but there's other things in science. And this is part of this downloaded information that is out there, that our reality is not what we think, and it never has been. And that a lot of this information is age old. It's not new information. It's just new to us. Just like if we had given an iPhone to our great grandparents, they'd go out and use it for a brick to make something. They wouldn't know what to do with it. So the context of what is happening has become less frightening and more technological and more energy based as something that could be real, not some strange anything related to a cult or religion or secret societies or all these things that have put the damper on this type of information and technology that has not allowed us to research it and to try to understand it and, because of those labels and affiliations.
And you also were grounded by the fact that you received rocks.
Oh, my rocks.
Remember
That's
that
right.
phase?
Yes, I was gifted rocks I'm not sure where they would, I still don't know where they would come from, but I would go out to go walking and there would be a perfect triangle shaped rock in one spot. And the next day, a perfect sphere of a rock. Then I went on a trip to Alaska and I was fishing with family and I looked down and there was a huge fossil rock of a triangle. So I would often get perfectly shaped triangle rocks. And I remember Kevin saying to me, have you asked anybody what that might be? And I said, like who? He said, well, whoever's leaving them, right? Oh, well, okay, I'll try. And I did get messaging that the triangle represented me, our group, and our sources on a 3-point, that we each have different contact sources and that we create within those 3 points. And we have. And now, and ever since I made that connection, then I started getting the sphere rocks. And remember me saying, now I'm on to sacred geometry, spheres and circles, because I think I figured out the triangles. But
Yeah,
odd stuff, my whole life has been odd. What I used to just call intuition, I know is a lot more than that. I am able to remote view sometimes. I can find stuff that has been lost for a long time. People will come and ask me, where is it? And I find stuff. So I have these, what I thought were latent kind of abilities that now I know I have developed more, that have somehow been energized within me. And I think that's a common thing too. We're somehow turned on, and maybe we always had it with us, but we need certain experiences to help activate it.
I kind of want to wrap up a little bit, but before I do, and I'd like to do a longer show on this at one time with just a group of experiences from our Exoconscious Coaching group. But you have a very interesting faith background. And I was wondering how, and family's very important in your faith. And I'm wondering how you integrate where you are now with who you used to be, and how that integrates and is woven into your faith, into your theology and your spirituality.
Well, I think initially it was kind of, it was a bit of a conflict. I was raised in a devout LDS Mormon family, and I'm still a practicing LDS member. But at first, I think I was really like, okay, what does our faith teach about this? Well, my faith teaches that other worlds were created by God and that there's other life out there. That was never a conflict for me. So I didn't think, okay, I can't believe in life out there and not have faith in being a Christian or in God. I felt right away, that's just not a conflict for me. And maybe I'm fortunate in that I have always thought that there was other life out there, and that my faith taught other worlds were created by God. And so sometimes there'll be a bit of a conflict where I have to really think about, is this a cultural thing that is reinforced through society, or is this really a religious doctrine that is in conflict for me? And it's just not. And so I just think that for me, just as if a Catholic person were to believe in extraterrestrial life or life on other planets, they would feel like, well, my faith doesn't say that isn't true. In fact, there's Catholic leaders that have come out and said they're also children of God, or, you try to integrate it in a way that makes sense to you, hopefully based on what your doctrine teaches, which is that, we're spirits of a heavenly father, of a source, of a grand creator. And why would it only be here in this vastness of a created universe and multiverses? That that never really made sense to me. And that's not really what my faith has taught. So it's not really been a conflict for me.
So looking back at your career, when you worked for some time with high school kids, people's post-secondary, high school individuals, adult individuals, since moving into this more conscious, exoconscious phase of your life, has your approach to your professional work changed at all? Do you see human behavior as anything different? Do you look at humans in any special way now? Is your intuition any different about humans? What's been the effect of you professionally?
Yeah, it's changed dramatically. The way I interact with people is really more based on the information that's been given to me about manifesting your own reality, that you can create both negative and positive, and that this force that exists where everything is connected on a quantum level is a real thing, and that that words have a frequency, that a thought has a frequency, that how you interact with another person has an energy to it that's not woo woo. I mean, that's how it used to be, that, this is all woo woo stuff. But what I'm learning on a quantum level is it's not woo woo. It's a real energy, and it has an ability to change an environment, and to change a relationship, and to change how you think and feel about yourself first and foremost, and then how you feel about other people. If you truly are, if we're all connected, are you doing to someone else? You're really doing it to yourself. And the isolation and separatist type mentality is the age old divider. It's the way that wars have been started. It's the problem with our society and culture as a whole is our separation, is our division, is our I'm right, you're wrong, mentality. And that's, until we can lose that, we're not going to evolve. We are going to stay in a very separate and competitive environment, and nothing's really going to change for us. So it's changed quite a bit in how I interact and help people.
That's exciting. That's very exciting. And I love how you share that integration of the downloads and the scientific information you have, because there's so much coming forward on DNA and neural research, brain research. What's your assessment of where we're going to be? Let's just pick a year. Let's say, well, the House hearings are coming up, the Senate hearings coming. So let's just look at, going into 2024. What's your role in all this, and how do you see it unfolding?
I think what is happening here is we are finally being given an opportunity to integrate science with what used to be mysticism and the mystery schools. And it's been separate for so long that it could not be researched. It was just the ridicule. It was career ending. If you wanted to be a researcher, even if you're a PhD and study anything mystical, well, then it's a cult, it's demonic, or you're just crazy, or, the ridicule factor kept everyone away. And I mean, can you imagine a senator putting forth a bipartisan bill where he mentioned otherworldly life or other human, he didn't use the word extraterrestrial, but non-human, like that just would never have happened. So we have to imagine a world where for 80 years, anyone who's followed the past 80 years is like, yeah, finally. But then there's people who are like, what? What are you talking about? And it is just an absolute shock. Even I've in my own family, there is no still real, acknowledgement. It's still just this absolute determined, there's just no way. And it's a fear that is coming and exhibiting itself. And even if somebody had a piece of the craft and showed them, they wouldn't believe it. So my role, and I think our role, is to try to create a different climate that is not fear-based, because people are going to want to know. They are going to wake up to the reality of this. And when you talk about committees being formed at the highest level, and they're picking religious leaders and sociologists and an economist, what do you need an economic guy for? Are you worried it's going to affect world economy? Maybe they are. So, if these are the concerns they have and they're controlling the narrative, what should we be paying attention to? What do we know about fear-based behavior? That we need to say that's there and it's being reinforced as a threat. So what will people do who have no clue about any of this that we know? What they have no other resource. They don't even know what to go read. And if they Googled it, they'd get a million things. So to me, it's about providing another pathway that's positive, that is what we're supposed to do to evolve, rather than fall back into a fear-based society of warring and division, because that could happen quite easily and still might.
So if someone were to come to you and say, Karin, you're in this Exoconscious Coaching group, and I've heard you mention it, but what's an exoconscious human? Who are you? Who are you people? What would you tell them?
I would probably tell them we are a group of people, or that we've had experience that is beyond the scope of this world. So it could be interdimensional, it could be extra. I mean, there's many words for a life force that does not exist in our perceived reality. That each of us have had different contact experiences. So whatever that entitles, and in a weird way, with this Senate bill being put forth, or bipartisan bill, to say non-human intelligence, he's kind of nailing it, right? Because that could include a whole lot of things, and that we would have people at that level using that terminology gives us then an ability to say, that non-human intelligence stuff that those guys are talking about, we know what that is. And we've had experience with that. And it's not all fear-based and a threat, that it's also got a lot of beneficial information to help us evolve as a species.
Well, that's beautiful. Thank you. Can you tell people how to reach you, and give an example of the type of coaching that you do and the type of clients that you're working with, and your website? And
my website is Begin It Now, all one word, lowercase, Begin It Now Coaching. And that should just take you right to in fact, maybe I'm sure we can provide it in there, but it's, that's my website, and anyone could sign up for a free discovery session. I offer 15 minutes of a free discovery session where they can, ask me any questions and give me their presenting problem, and I can, let them know if that's something I could help them with. And then they can decide if they want to move forward with more assistance or more help. Most of my focus is on relationships. I feel like Now that I have a better understanding of how everyone is energetically connected, that I'm very interested in quantum healing. I followed that quite a bit, and I'm getting certified in that because I feel like that is the way we're being given this information, but we have to do the work. We have to be able to show that we can evolve, that we can be activated, whatever word you want to use, that many people use lots of words, enlightened, but it's really a way of interacting in a different way with people. Paying attention to them, listening to them, knowing that your thoughts and your words have energy. Certainly, we can't always control our thoughts, but it's good to learn how to control what you say and mean what you say, and that there will be an end result to that, both good or bad. So communication style, past trauma, if you're dealing with a lot of trauma, it's going to be really difficult to move into some type of evolution that is a higher way of thinking, a higher way of behaving. We're going to be really stuck in that wounded child inner trauma situation. So I do a lot with that too.
Oh, that's so well said, because trauma is kind of like a rock in your shoe. And you have to do the work to like take your shoe off, dump out the rock, and find a new way to walk into life without that constant aggravation and wound opening every time you take a step.
The word triggered has got a lot of play, in the past few years, but that's probably the best way to describe it for people. It's a real feeling of being sucked right back into an emotional situation. And I try to teach people to respond with neutrality. There's a lot in how we communicate with people that can make it a lot better or a lot worse. And you're not going to, be able to evolve in your relationship, in your family, in your friendship, in your professional world, if your communication style is stuck in trauma.
It's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I look forward to having you back, because I want to do a show in the future with Kevin, and then with you and Kevin and some other members of the group that are all receiving these messages, because group coaching is very different than one-on-one work. It's
yeah, it is. I've done some group coaching online on Zoom, and it's not easy.
Well, but it has a power to it.
Oh, yeah.
You put
wonderful.
people together, and you never know. I think, well, me personally, when I'm doing one-on-one, I feel like, okay, I have a bit of control here. I can ask questions. Group coaching, no. You don't have a foot on the accelerator. Yeah, you don't have a foot on the accelerator. You don't have your hands on the steering wheel, and that group is just going to take off in the direction that it's going to take off. And it's so exciting to watch that happen.
I think we create in our group while we're with each other, and that also is part of the energy that we're not limited to. Once you have an understanding of this quantum level energy, you're not limited by technology. Like you and I are sharing energy right now. And it's certainly more powerful in person, but we know now that we can be connected despite distance and share energy and create and have something happening that we were unaware of. And when it enters our bubble of awareness, we have this knowing, and we can act on it instead of just trying to constantly be like, I don't know what's happening. You get energy that confirms these experiences. At least I do. I think other members do as well.
And I love it when the group comes together and Kevin says, oh, Karin, I got a message from you, or you're saying, Donna, I wrote you an email and I was thinking of you and I got this information. And it's almost like there's this network between us that carries this communication, but it's bigger than us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, it's happening maybe all over to some extent in small groups. And what if we can connect to those other small groups? We can grow this consciousness to a higher level and bring in even more. And that's how we will evolve.
It's exciting. Thank you for being with us. Thank you, Dr. Karin McLeod. Thank you so much.
You've done so much for me, and I really appreciate it.
Good. Yeah, thank you.